Come on, cut it out, always showing up in front of me with that face. I can't stand it. Can't you do something about that face? Sorry about that. It's not like I chose to be born with this face, but every time you see me, Mom, you're always complaining. What's that? You're talking back now? You've become so cheeky lately. Just because you turned 12 doesn't mean you can start rebelling against your parents. I was born blind in my right eye, which caused it to enlarge slightly, making my face look unbalanced. My mother was so repulsed by my appearance when I was born that she considered abandoning me. However, after being severely scolded by her parents, she reluctantly decided to raise me. She has complained to me multiple times about this. You're one to talk, acting like a parent when you've only raised me because you had to. I've never once thought of you as my mom. My mother looked at me with a gaze full of nothing but hatred, without showing any other emotion. Man, it's noisy this morning. What's the deal? Let me sleep in on my day off. Why don't you say something to her? You must not like her face, right? What? What are you on about all of a sudden? Of course, I find her face disgusting. It's your fault for having a kid like this, and now we're stuck taking care of her. We should just get rid of her. Who cares about being parents? I know. As soon as my father woke up, my mother's tone became harsher, and she started saying things like get rid of her and disgusting face right in front of me. Since my father also only judged me by my appearance, I knew he disliked me from the start. So, to me, they were just an unpleasant man and woman who happened to feed me. I see, so that's all you think of me. I wasn't sad. I had known they were those kind of people, so it didn't matter to me. Yeah, a freak and a worthless person like you. I don't remember giving birth to you. Suddenly, my mother said that to me and then went to whisper something to my father. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I knew they were plotting something. What's the matter? If you have something to say, just say it. It's nothing. Anyway, we have errands to run this morning, so we'll be leaving soon. After saying that, my mom and dad started eating breakfast, quickly got ready, and left for somewhere. They often went out in the morning and came back at night, so I didn't find it suspicious. But that day, they didn't come back, not after 3 days, not after a week, and then a month passed. I could handle it for a week, that happened once before, but a month? That clearly means I've been abandoned, right? I was confused but decided to call the only number I knew by heart, my maternal grandparents, to see if they knew anything. Hello, Grandpa? Oh, Anna, what's up? Calling me out of the blue. Have you heard anything from Mom? HM? From Mirabelle? No, I haven't heard anything. I told my grandfather everything that had happened over the last month. All the verbal abuse I had received from my mom, my dad, and the fact that they were reluctantly raising me. Mirabelle said that. And she hasn't come back for a month. Are her belongings still there? Yeah, what should I do? Come to my house, I'll come pick you up right now. An hour later, my grandfather came to pick me up in his car, and I ended up living at my maternal grandfather's house. That's because I told to Mirabelle to raise the child properly. It seems like she was raising you reluctantly. I keep thinking maybe we should have taken you in and raised you ourselves. Anna, you've really been through a lot because of us. I'm sorry. I'm so disappointed in Mirabelle. It's not your fault, the bad one is Mom. She hated me just because I was blind in my right eye and it was enlarged, making me look bad. And in the end, I don't remember giving birth to a freak like you. That was the only thing that really made me sad. I couldn't think of her as a parent, but I was grateful for being born. Those words from my mother suddenly pierced my heart, and I started crying. Seeing this, my grandfather handed me a handkerchief and spoke to me in a kind voice. Mirabelle has always been like that, judging people by their looks and looking down on them. She's the one who doesn't understand anything. Just you wait, you'll show her how capable you are in the future. Over the next 12 years, I lived with my grandfather, learned many things, and then started a business, becoming a CEO with an annual revenue of $3 billion at a young age. Then, my parents, having heard rumors from my grandfather, came to the company and apologized to us. And that's when my parents' downfall began. My name is Anna, and I was born blind in my right eye, which caused it to become enlarged. My mom, who couldn't stand the sight of it, raised me until I was 12, frequently subjecting me to verbal abuse because she disliked my face. She has a blunt personality, judging people by their looks and openly complaining about anyone whose appearance she dislikes. Really, can't something be done about your face? It sickens me every time I see it. I vividly remember being told that while she touched my enlarged eye when I was just 3 years old. More often than not, she would mock my face, but she also used my blindness to play cruel pranks, like placing obstacles at my feet to trip me. Why can't you see that? Pay attention, you klutz, that's why you're a failure. As I grew older, the harassment escalated, with my dad turning a blind eye. Seeking help was futile. Stay away because you're disgusting, they'd say, leaving me without an ally at home. Mom criticized my eye again today. Am I not even seen as her child? Day after day, I would cry in my room, talking to my dolls. I was shocked that my mother didn't see me as a child, and I didn't know what to do. However, by the time I turned 12, any affection I had for my parents had completely vanished. Fed up with being mistreated, I began to fight back. Cut it out, always calling me disgusting and a failure, but aren't you the real failures for treating your child this way? Such exchanges became common with my mother. She fought back, but I refused to be defeated, so I fought desperately. Around this time, my parents started leaving the house more frequently. "We're going out," was all they'd say, leaving me clueless about their whereabouts. When I was younger, they'd return after half a day or a day, but lately, they sometimes wouldn't come back until late at night, or in extreme cases, they'd be gone for a week. However, I found solace during the times when the suffocating presence of my parents was absent, and their mysterious behavior somehow worked out in my favor. "Anna, do you want to study more?" My mom suddenly said that to me. I had wanted to go to private middle school and had planned to apply and take the exams for the one I wanted to attend. But my mom unilaterally decided to cancel my application, preventing me from going to middle school. "Why? What's the meaning of this? What are you talking about? You don't need middle school, do you? Why would someone like you, a failure, think you can attend the same school as normal people? Stop deluding yourself. Failure, failure, that's all you ever say to belittle me. Why do you hate me so much, Mom? Why won't you let me do as I wish? Because you're not human. Your right eye can't see, it's larger than that of normal people. Despite being inferior to others in appearance, don't you dare act human." Hearing "you're not human" from my mother crashed my heart. Until then, she had never gone that far, but there, in front of me, she finally said it. It was the most hurtful thing she had ever said to me. Why do I have to be told that? I'm living just fine, talking with you and Dad. Saying I'm not human is too cruel. The words "not human" were too bitter to swallow. I had intended to counter everything she had said up until now, to win an argument against her, but those words broke me, and I began to shut myself in my room and cry every day. As she declared, my mom withdrew my middle school application and started to neglect me at home. "We're not going to be home all day today, so take care." That's what she'd say before leaving behind only a little food. I managed to cook and eat on my own. While it was bearable for a day, gradually, the days they were away increased to 3 days, a week, getting longer and longer. Where were they always going? While harboring such doubts, one day, my parents came back holding big bags. "We're home." I had never reacted much before, but seeing them holding bags with tropical flowers on them, dressed like they'd just been on a trip, I was surprised and couldn't help but exclaim. "What's that? Where have you been?" "Oh, what a surprise, you're asking such a thing, want to know?" "Not really." I was annoyed by my mom's overly cheerful demeanor, though I was curious. I acted like I wasn't interested. But it seemed like my mom wanted to talk anyway and started on her own. "Actually, we went to Hawaii." I figured as much. They're wearing aloha shirts and sunglasses on their heads, they must have had a great time. At that moment, I was certain. The reason my parents had been leaving the house so often was that they were going on trips without me. They didn't want to show the world my shabby face, so they left me behind. Great, go on your own, you trash. My mom's cheery voice irked me, and I blurted out something cold without thinking. Perhaps annoyed by my words, my mom slapped me without a word. What's with you, giving such a dull response, mocking people, what do you mean by that? Like I'd have any other reaction to parents who leave their kid behind for a long vacation, don't mess with me. I glared at my mom and stormed off to my room, disgusted by my parents' despicable actions. I didn't even want to see them, too frustrated to cry. I just curled up in my dark room, emptying my mind on the bed. Maybe it would be better to just run away from this house than to live like this. I considered it. But what could I do at the age of 12? Even if I ran away, my parents wouldn't come after me, but I had no means to live on my own, so staying at home seemed like the only option. The next morning, something felt different. My mom seemed to be in a bad mood. Was she still upset about yesterday's incident? As I was about to go to the bathroom, my mom hurled her usual insults at me. Enough already, always showing up in front of me with that face. I can't stand it, can't you do something about that face? But her voice wasn't the usual light tone. It was heavier, pressing down on my feelings with a weighty tone. Then, after a series of arguments between me and my mom, and a meaningful whisper between her and my dad who had just woken up, they left the house minutes later, never to return. A month went by without them, and I was sure I had been abandoned. I remembered once thinking, maybe it's better to leave this house, and tears started to form. I was actually relieved that my parents were gone. But the feeling of being utterly alone grew stronger, and anxiety started to well up. I'm so lonely. If I really have been abandoned, it's just so lonely. Mom. Dad. In my loneliness, thoughts of my mother and father flashed through my mind. But those feelings were quickly replaced as I remembered someone else. My maternal grandfather, who used to take me to his place often when I was little, where I stayed many times. Probably back then, since I didn't have the means to live by myself for a day, they had left me with him, thinking it wasn't good to leave me alone at home. Remembering my kind grandfather, I called the only number I knew of my maternal grandparents' house and told him everything that had happened. Mom said, "I'm not human." Called me a failure, said she was only raising me because she had to. Hearing my grandfather's voice after so long brought a sense of relief, and pouring out my heart made the tears I had been holding back come flooding out. I crumbled and sobbed in front of the phone, realizing I had been suppressing the desire to cry this much. "Come to our house, I'll come pick you up right away." Hearing my grandfather's kind voice over the phone, I felt relieved and waited for him. That very day, I was taken to my grandfather's house. "Anna, do you have good grades?" Suddenly asked by my grandfather. I wondered why he would ask that and replied, "Huh? Why?" He then handed me a pamphlet. "A middle school brochure?" "That's right. Anna, you weren't allowed to attend middle school, right? Why don't you try going there? It's possible to enroll midterm, and if it's about money, I'll pay for it. Go there and study. Do you like studying?" "Yes, I like studying. I hated being with my parents, so I loved school, and I had a lot of friends there. But now I can't see them anymore." "Well, you can make new friends. And about that eye, your parents didn't do anything about it, but how about trying surgery? The light won't come back, but it might fix the imbalance. Is that okay? Won't that be a bother to you, Grandpa?" "It's no bother at all. If it makes you healthy and happy, I'm willing to spend that money on you. Don't worry, I have plenty of savings. It's money I wouldn't be using for anything else in my old age anyway. Let me spend it on you." I was so happy. My grandfather said that letting me attend middle school and even get surgery for my eye, which improved my appearance a bit. With a prosthetic eye, I started a new life, and by the time I was going to high school, my grandfather told me something. "You are truly my granddaughter. You've inherited it well." "What have I inherited?" "Not just your exceptional grades in math, but you're doing well in other subjects too. With a brain like that, couldn't you study business management? Business management? Yes, why don't you study it and try running a company? That would really show those foolish daughters of mine. I was surprised by my grandfather's sudden proposal, but I felt it was a chance to prove my mom and those who looked down on me wrong. My grandfather, concerned about my parents who had cut off all contact, occasionally checked in on them through his smartphone, which allowed me to get a little insight into their lives. Though I never disclosed that I was staying with him. I had hoped your mom would study business management and take over the company I ran. But that foolish daughter of mine had her own things she wanted to do, left home, and only came back occasionally to drop you off. Such an unfilial child. Grandpa, so you mean I should take over the company? At first, I meant taking over the original company, but it's gone. However, a subsidiary that branched off is still surviving, looking for someone to take it over. It's still a future prospect, but not a bad one, right? With your intelligence, Anna, you're sure to grasp the knowledge needed for management. Give it a try and study hard. Then, I applied for a high school recommended by my grandfather, focused on business management. After graduating, my grandfather taught me more about being an entrepreneur, and by the time I was 20, I was entrusted with running the subsidiary. By 24, my talent for management blossomed, achieving an annual revenue of $3 billion. After 12 years, I was able to acquire wealth and a decent appearance. Anna, you've really done well. I'm amazed at your talent for management. I couldn't even make $3 billion a year when I was active. I'm glad we discovered your talent. No, it's all thanks to you, Grandpa. If you hadn't told me to come live with you, I wouldn't have grown this much. Who knows what would have happened to me? I shuddered at the thought of being left behind in that apartment. While my grandfather and I were getting sentimental, his smartphone suddenly rang. Hello? Hi, Dad, I have a favor to ask. Is it okay if I come over this evening? A favor? What's this all of a sudden? Yeah, I think we talked about it a bit over email before, about needing some money. You never learn, do you? I've always tried to teach you to handle these things properly. It's because you refuse help that you end up in these situations. I'm really sorry. Anyway. Fine, come over. I'll listen to what you have to say. It was my mother calling Grandpa. It was about money matters. Grandpa responded calmly and without showing any emotion, his attitude reeking of disdain. Mom. That was Mirabelle on the phone. She's coming over this evening. It'll be a good chance for revenge. Make sure you're here. But I'm a bit scared. Don't worry, you're 24 now. If you want, bring your boyfriend along. Having a strong man around could work to our advantage. Your dad will be there too, and we'd be at a disadvantage in terms of strength, just in case. Grandpa said this with a twinkle in his eye, trying to ease my nerves. At this time, I had a boyfriend who had promised to marry me and was working with me as the vice president at my company. He was a talented young employee who stayed with the subsidiary when I started managing it, supporting me ever since I stepped in as president. We had become great partners over time. Chairman, that's so sudden. Anna told me about it, but it's too much responsibility for me. Stop it, I'm not a chairman. That was back when I was at that company. Now, I'm just a retired old man. Anyway, you've been a partner supporting Anna and the company. You're reliable. Just come, I won't treat you badly. Initially reluctant, he gradually came around and ended up responding with a laugh. Thank you, see you this evening. I never imagined I'd be meeting my parents so suddenly. I felt scared, but I tried to suppress the nervousness and worked until the evening. Then, I went home with him, and Grandpa gave us instructions. For now, you two hide in the next room. I'll start the conversation. If I get angry and hit the floor, that's your cue to come out. We agreed and hid in the next room. Dad, it's been a while. Sorry for the sudden visit. I could hear my mother's shrill voice in the other room. The moment I heard her voice, I felt a wave of fear and my spine chilled. Are you okay? You look frightened. Do you think you can handle it? Seeing my face freeze up, he comforted me and rubbed my back. My body was shaking, but I managed to calm myself down and stayed quiet. You mentioned something about needing money on the phone. What happened? Actually, I've got some debt and need a significant amount to repay it. I don't have any money to lend you. Whatever reason you had for getting into debt, you need to take responsibility and pay it back yourself. What kind of adult at 50 says such things? Then why did you call us here? You could have just refused over the phone. Let me say one thing. What about your child? What? Child? Did something happen to Anna? I'm asking if you've properly raised her. You hardly ever contact us, don't visit home, and never talk about Anna. She should have gone to middle school and even high school by now. She should be working by her age, but we've never heard from her. What's your intention? That's up to her, isn't it? I've made sure she went through middle and high school and watched over her until she became an adult. I don't know which company she joined, but she must be enjoying herself, right? My mother's voice lowered, her initially shrill tone becoming somewhat huskier. Feeling like she was hiding something, I pressed my ear to the sliding door to listen more closely to the conversation between her and my grandfather. So, who was it that called this house 12 years ago? What? Mirabelle, where were you for a whole month 12 years ago? On a trip? Leaving your child at home for a month, what were you doing? What? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. I'm going to have you spill the beans, all of it, about Anna, your financial situations, everything, the truth. My grandfather yelled and then vigorously hit the floor, signaling us to come out. I opened the door forcefully and appeared in front of my mother. Long time no see, do you recognize who I am? What, you? Anna? Seeing me suddenly, my mother and my father, who was sitting silently behind her, jumped in surprise. Why are you here, and why is your eye fixed? My eye isn't fixed. I had it surgically removed and got a prosthetic eye. Also, I'm here because you left me in that house 12 years ago. Grandpa told me to come here and he took me in. I blurted out the words, driven by my emotions. Honestly, I was scared. My body was trembling, but I mustered all my courage to speak my mind. Wait, then why did you even call us here? You could have just said no over the phone. My mom raised her voice, glaring at Grandpa with a look that seemed to accuse him of being unfair. Don't joke around, what do you mean? Don't you understand the situation? I said it before, tell us everything. Anna being here means you should know what you need to talk about, right? I won't let you say you forgot. Grandpa's intimidating demand made Mom falter, and she sat down again, starting to speak while looking down. What should I say? What do you want to know? About Anna. Why did you leave me in that apartment 12 years ago, and what were you always leaving the house for? Mom sighed deeply before starting. At that time, we indeed left the apartment. We were looking for a new place and found a new apartment within a month, where we started living. So, you really didn't want me? No, I didn't want to be with a child with such a horrible face. That's why, after that day's fight, we planned to leave you behind. I've always thought so, but you really are the worst mother. How could you do that to your child? How could I accept such a disgusting face? Plus, being born blind in one eye, a child with disabilities, made it even worse. Unable to stand our argument any longer, he stepped forward, glaring at my mom as he began to get angry. What's wrong with Anna? One I can't see? Her face is strange? I've seen her childhood photos, and I thought she looked completely normal. How can you say such awful things to an innocent child? You're lowest of the low. What? You. I've been wondering about you since you've been lurking behind Anna, but don't suddenly butt into a family argument. She's my most beloved partner and the president of my company. Of course, I have to protect her. Mom was shocked by his words and suddenly grabbed my chest. What did that man just say? You're the president of the company. Don't you dare be so cool and become one of those people who are lower in rank than I am. You've got to be kidding. Lower? Who's lower? I know. The company you're at now, it's a subcontractor for the company I run. What? What do you mean? Being a subcontractor means information flows to us. If you're working for a subcontractor of our company, you should be earning a decent salary, so struggling to repay debt doesn't add up. You're lying, aren't you? My comment made my mother suddenly show signs of distress. That's when my father, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. Hold on, Mirabelle, don't be hasty. He moved closer to Mom, trying to silence her. But Mom shrugged him off and began to tell the truth. We were going to move overseas and completely cut us off from the rest of the world. But it's going to cost more than I thought, so I thought I'd take some of my dad's money for it. What's wrong with it, you jerk? Mom let it all out as if a dam had burst. Hearing her words, my dad hung his head in shame, while Grandpa, furious, slapped her hard. I knew Mirabelle was nasty, but not to this extent. You unfilial brat, planning to shake down your parent for money, shame on you. Let me tell you, with your attitude, you're only gonna have hard time, just like your mother did, and now you'll experience hell. Grandpa then turned his anger towards my dad. And you, Ken, what were you thinking sticking with her? Birds of a feather flock together, huh? I thought you were decent when you came to ask for marriage, but are you trash too? No, I'm not like that. I was just. How dare you speak like that? I've heard from Anna. It seems you've said some pretty awful things to her too, about hating her disgusting face. No, please, I was just influenced by her. Influenced? So you're the type who can't make up your own mind, waiting for directions. You chose the wrong person to be with. It was the first time I saw my dad look so scared and weak. I realized he was always influenced by others, easily swayed, and felt the most pathetic for him at that moment. Being with my mother probably gave him the courage to act so arrogantly. Feeling this, I started to see my father as the most pathetic of all at that moment. Oh, so that's how it was, such a pitiful person. Enough already, Ken has nothing to do with this. It's all my fault, right? What do you want, calling me here? Revenge. I want you to experience all the pain I went through in my childhood. What do you mean? For starters, you're fired. You've been getting a good salary up until now, but that's over. Is that all? With my skills, I can easily find another job. Think so? Everything you did to me in my childhood, I'll be taking you to court over it. You can't be serious, that was 12 years ago. You thought I hadn't looked into it? What you did constitutes child abuse, neglect, and domestic violence, and I have the evidence. Even if it was decades ago, it can still go to trial, and the damages you've done to me are immeasurable. You left my eye untreated for 12 years because you didn't want to spend any money on me, right? That's child abuse. So what, you want me to pay you? Show some remorse, neglecting your own child to that extent. If Grandpa hadn't been there, what do you think would have happened to me? After that, I went back to the apartment to collect my things. By then, you were gone. Acting like you left on your own and now saying all this. No matter what was said, my mother wouldn't budge. Stubbornly sticking to her own version of events, trying to overpower everything with brute force. But such an attempt was futile. I began talking about the lawsuit again. Child abuse, neglect, domestic violence, and various other crimes you've committed are being discussed with the court. The lawyer says we can get about $200,000 in damages. I've had it estimated conservatively even for something from the past, but if that's not enough, should I increase the amount? The documents are ready to be filed. Wait, are you serious? I can't pay $200,000. Pay up, you scum. Do you have any idea how much you've mentally tormented me? I don't know. Finally, the agitation started to show on my mother's face. Her eyes darted around, flustered about what to do. Wait, Why am I the one who has to pay when I just came to get money? I told you, people with your kind of personality end up facing hard times. Life doesn't always go as planned. From now on, Mirabelle will live her life settling the debt she owes Anna. I won't help you, fend for yourself, and you too, Ken. With Grandpa's final words, my mother collapsed in tears. I couldn't tell exactly what emotions were swirling in those tears, but they seemed to me like tears of frustration. We'll definitely go through with the lawsuit, and you're going to pay up, I said, handing her a paper to write down her current address. It would be essential for filing the lawsuit. After wrapping up, I escorted my mother out, and he did the same with my father, ensuring they were completely gone. A few days later, the paperwork was filed, and the lawsuit began, culminating in our victory. The words "my most beloved partner, the president of my company, Anna, how could I not protect her?" really made me happy. Without that, I might have broken down. My mom was pretty scary. I'm glad you could stand up to your mom face to face like that, settling the past. And now that we're getting the money, I think we're set for a smooth sailing, so... Yes? That phrase, you proposed amidst the chaos, right? I kind of knew. Let's get married. And so, we decided to get married at that moment, and a year later, we did, even welcoming a baby into our lives. Our lives were smooth sailing, but my parents, after much conflict, ended up divorcing. My father returned to his childhood home after decades, ignored by his parents and living alone, while my mother, once kicked out by Grandpa, now lives alone in a small apartment, as informed by Grandpa. People should live their lives honestly and earnestly. Like your parents, those who deceive and exploit others will eventually face hardship, as I've learned from experience. So make sure to raise and educate your own children properly. Grandpa said this when our child was born and then passed away due to old age, leaving us his home filled with memories. Now, as a family of 3, we're building a happy life in that house.